Ink blending is a trendy technique in the world of paper crafting. If you're into arts and crafts, especially card making, you've probably seen some stunning projects using this technique. Ink blending is a great way to create quick and easy cards that are beautiful without needing to learn too many skills. Let's explore 5 ink blending techniques that will help you take your card making to the next level. First of all, what is ink blending? Ink blending is the art of merging inks onto a surface to create a seamless ombre effect. It's a popular technique in mixed media art and has gained traction in card making, scrapbooking, and journaling. Social media platforms like Instagram and Pinterest have made these beautiful ombre backgrounds a sensation. To achieve seamless blending, you'll need high-quality ink blending tools, inks, and cardstock. Here are 2 basic ink blending techniques for beginners: blending directly onto paper and using a stencil to add a pattern. Here are 5 quick steps for ink blending. Place your cardstock onto your work surface. If using a stencil, secure it on the cardstock or use a sticky mat. Load your ink blending tool by pressing it to the ink pad or swipe the ink pad onto your work surface and pick up the ink with your tool. Gently press your blending tool onto the cardstock, making circular motions. Continue blending with light pressure. Blend towards your desired direction, usually starting from the corner and working yourself into the middle. Now let's explore 5 card making techniques using ink blending.
I'll be using the Stencil Art white cap peonies today that I'll create a few colorways. I'm going to use the 5th stencil to figure out where my placement is going to be, and this seems appropriate. It fits the entire stencil, and it also shows me that when I cut this out for die cutting, it will cut out the entire image without any complications. So that's how I figure out the placement. For the first color combination, I'm going with pinks and purples. So the colors I'll use are Rubelite, Raspberry, crisp dye inks, and for the purple, I'll use Hydrangea and Ultraviolet. I usually stick to 2 inks, and it normally depends on the pressure of my hand. So if I want to apply lighter inks, I'll just apply a light pressure, and if I want to add a darker ink somewhere, a more concentrated or saturated ink, I'll just add ink with a lot of pressure or just apply the darkest ink. I also choose to use a different blending tool if I want to apply a lighter ink. Like I'll start with the small blending tool and apply ink for the first layer using that. And if I want to apply a more concentrated or saturated ink, I would use the mini blending brush. You do not have to follow the same inking position as the previous stencil. Feel free to try a different blend. Purple over purple isn't necessary. You can add a bit of pink over purple in the second stencil or the third or the fourth. Do your own thing and don't overthink. Have fun while creating these panels. I had so much fun and enjoyed myself immensely. I wasn't thinking anything except for having fun, really. I was playing with color, and you should do the same. Now, if you want a more vibrant flower, you can add more ink. We have more layers, so you can add more ink. Okay, now I'll switch to the mini blending brush because I really want to add darker color now. And I'm extending that pink. Now I'm also going to extend the purple. I'll still use the hydrangea first. Add that purple onto the pink and then extend it. You can keep the tips lighter if you want to. Let's see how it looks. I like the look. And we have one more over here, A4. It's very easy layering. Now here you can switch to darker inks. I think these will work too, but it's best to switch to darker inks. For this one, I will use pink first so that it is a little different instead of adding purple here. And on the pink one, I can add the purple just to see how it looks. The leftover purple that I already have, just to see how it looks. And it looks really nice, actually. I'm also going to add a bit of ultraviolet over here in the right in the center so that it's really dark and adds a bit of dimension. And look at that. Do you see that? It looks really, really good. So we have this now, which is stencil number 5. This is just going to color the extra bits over here and also going to color the rest of the flower. Let's start with a dark purple right off the bat here, and then add a bit of pink to this. Leftover ink with the pink. Oh no, oh no. I needed, oh god. Sorry, made a mistake. Instead of the 4th stencil, I used the 5th stencil. Apologies, apologies. So this is the number 4 stencil, and we already added that purple. It's all right, it's all right. Everybody makes mistakes. Anyway, what I'm going to do is the same thing. We're going to repeat that. Going to add that purple, the dark purple. I'm going to add the pink, leftover ink. I'm going to do the same thing over here. I will add the leftover purple ink that I have. Oh, I don't have any. And I will add whatever purple ink I have here. Add it dark over here because this is going to be the darkest part, as I think it's going to be. And I'm going to use the leftover pink ink. Then I will go back to the 5, stencil 5. Okay, I'm going to add the dark purple here. Then I'm going to add the dark pink. I'm going to go switch to Ruby Light. I'm going to take a darker purple, which is Andromeda, and just add it to this area. For the green portions, the leafy bits like the stems and the leaves, I am going to use Forest Fern Fresh Dye ink. And there's a reason I am using the second layer of this stencil for the stems and the leaves. It's because once I applied the Forest Fern through the second layer, I'll use the first layer, which is the base layer, and I'll add the pink color that I used on the flowers and add it to the tips of some of the leaves. It's easier to add that to the white portion instead of adding it at the end, because it's just going to create a gray color or just create a muddy color. You can do that. You can also add it at the end, but it's better to add it to a plain white surface so it's more visible, unless that's not what you are going for and you want a subtle grayish tone. Then by all means add the pink. Once you are done adding green, then keep the tips of your leaves lighter, or the areas that you want to add the pink to slightly light, so that you can add pink and it's a little visible. To this last stencil, stencil number 6, I'm going to use Dark Night Crisp Dye ink, and I'm going to add this to the areas where I want to show intense shadow or depth. And then I will use the leftover pink ink on my blending brush to softly blend this out. I'll apply more saturated ink to the green portions, the same Forest Fern, and then I will use a micro blending brush to apply Dark Night to some of the portions of the green bits as well, just to add more depth. Now the Dark Night works in this case because it goes with the purple and it also goes with the green. So you can use this for both the colors to add shadows or depth.
So we're going to start with Citrus Burst. And this is all going to be in real time, so you can actually see like how long it takes me to do all of the ink blending. And I will be using a different blending tool for every color, because I am a little bit extra like that. I like having one for each color so that I don't get color contamination. But now we're going to take our little brush and we're going to put it directly to our stencil and our paper here. And I've kind of, you might notice this a little bit further on, I kind of started doing a straight line here, and then with my next color, which is going to be Amber Blaze, I have put all of the ink colors on the screen as well, in case you want to write them down. Now here, for some reason, I don't know, I kind of decided to go like in a bit of a rainbow-esque shape, and like that kind of arch. And then kind of halfway through, I abandoned that idea. I don't know. I can't explain these things. Things just happen sometimes. But what I should have done here, I should have carried on with the amber blaze all the way down to the bottom of that kind of row. But instead I went with the crimson to add that kind of reddish bit, and we've kind of gone a little bit more archy here again. But yeah, it's not going to be long until we kind of go in straight lines again. But it's, you know, just one of those things. Either do as I say or do as I do and end up with very different results. That is entirely up to you. Now, you might see that I will go back and forth between some of the colors here to kind of make sure that I get a nice color. But here first, now, we're gonna take this is an old kitchen towel, and we're going to very gently rub off that crimson ink before we add our puffy heart ink. Because we want, you know, the colors to be the colors that we actually want them to be, not just kind of randomly mixing colors to make a mixture between crimson and puffy heart. So we want each color to stand out on their own. And here you can still see that it's a little bit archy, but all of a sudden I'm kind of going a little bit straighter as well. So yes, not quite sure what's going on here, but you know. Anyway, so now we're going to move on to hydrangea, and we're going to, again, load up our brush. We are going to tap off a little bit of the excess. Now, the reason I do this, especially when I have a new tool, is also to help spread the ink evenly onto the bristles, because I find that it gives me much smoother results. So I don't get those like blobs of ink in places where I don't want them, basically. So it's more to, it's not just about sort of making a mess, although, you know, that happens as well. But it's more about kind of, you know, prepping the brush, prepping the ink, and, you know, just getting the best results. And then also when you do need just a touch of ink, especially when you do like pastel ink blending, you have, instead of going to a super saturated ink pad, you can take a little bit of ink from the lid instead. It works a treat, I tell you. Now we're going to go in with our favorite blue, my favorite blue, Dusk. I love this blue. It is such a gorgeous blue. Love it. Cannot say enough good things about it. But we're going to put this away, and we're going to finish off with our last color, which is going to be Firefly. And we're going to wipe off a little bit of that Dusk again, because the Firefly is quite light, so we don't want any color contamination. No. And again, you will see me here and there kind of going back and forth with the colors to kind of get that nice smooth color blend, like as they're going into each other as well. Now I know that not everyone works the way I do, because I am a little bit of a lunatic. I am not going to lie. I am a little bit of a crafting lunatic. Now, if you want to have just a smallish amount of blending brushes, you know, you can always just clean them off in between. And if you keep one for like your darker color families and one for your lighters, you know, you'll be good with that. You don't have to be as extra as I am. It will probably save you a pretty penny as well, not gonna lie. But now we are almost finished here. So you can see it doesn't take a huge amount of time. And when you really focus on it as well, it's gonna take less than, I mean, we're something like 5 minutes into the video, and we have a beautiful background, but you can kind of see like where I started with the arching and then kind of went to the straight lines. But never mind, it is pretty, it's colorful.
I have a panel of porcelain cotton card panel on my sticky mat grid, and I'm creating a very textured ink blended background on this cotton card panel. I'm using Summer Afternoon Fresh Dye ink set to create this blend. The wonderful thing about these fresh dye ink sets from Altenew is you can very easily add a block of color to your palette simply by grabbing a set. I'm using a large ink blending tool to apply a gradient of buttercream and warm sunshine to the porcelain panel.
Starting with my first idea, which might not be what you think, it's to create a bold background. This is going to give me somewhere for my small stamped images or my small stamps. Anything I want to do, somewhere for them to live. Just because we're using small stamps does not mean that we have to create a clean and simple white space card. If you create or have somewhere for those small stamps to sit and shine, it's going to be a lot more fun. Now, you don't have to make your own background like I'm doing here today. I'm making a bright, bold, striped background today because I thought this style would really suit the stamp set that I'm using. So depending on what you're going to be using, which small stamps you're going to be using, that might dictate what kind of a background you want to create. Something like a background stamp would work really well and be a little bit quicker than what I'm doing. Or you could even use a cover die to create a really quick background, or deboss one, or emboss one, or you could even just stick to that white space if that's what you like.
So to start with, I'm going to be using the Tranquility Rose stamp. And to start with, I'm just going to be using the outline of the beautiful rose that is on this set. And I'm just going to be stamping this onto a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 card panel using some obsidian ink. So I'm just going to stamp this into place 3 times. So once I've done that, I'm then going to take one of the stencils. So this is the one that has the base layer on. And I'm going to place this around the rose, and I'm then going to ink through it. And for this one, I'm going to be using the Canyon Clay ink. It's a really pretty, kind of like a brownie pink colour. It sounds a little weird, but it is very, very pretty. So I'm going to do this for all 3 of the roses to make sure that they're nicely covered. Once I've done that, I'm then going to take the second layer of the stencil, and I'm just going to pop that into place onto the rose. And for this one, I'm going to be using the burnt red ink. And I'm going to do exactly the same for the other 2 little roses that we have there. So pop the stencil around and then ink through using my little mini ink blending tool and the burnt red ink. So once that one's done, I can then take the 3rd layer again. I'm going to pop that into place. And then I'm going to be using the mahogany bark for this one. This is going to add a really dark like center and shadow to these beautiful roses. So once all 3 of those are then done, I'm then going to be doing some heat embossing. So what I want to do is I want to pop some anti-static powder down just in those white spaces. It doesn't really matter if it goes over the roses. Then I'm going to take that base layer again, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some embossing ink and a little foam pad, and I'm going to squidge through that ink onto that little rose that we have. I'm then going to heat emboss some clear embossing powder on top of that, and it's going to create a really shiny looking, kind of glazed look flower. I'm going to do exactly the same for the other 2. So again, pop the stencil around, add some embossing ink, and then some clear embossing powder and heat set. So it's going to give a really beautiful look, and it does intensify the look of the inks underneath. Once that's done, I can then add my leaves. Now that heat embossing is going to act as a resist, so it doesn't matter if I do go over the flowers with this ink, we're going to be able to clean that up really easily. So I'm just using one of the leaves from the set and also the obsidian to stamp them into place. So once I've done that, I can then clean the ink off the roses. I'm just using a wet baby wipe and also a tissue. So I'm going with the baby wipe first to get rid of the ink. And then once that has been taken off, I'm then going to use the tissue just to dry it off and get rid of any residue that was left. So once that's done, I can then move on to the leaves. Now I'm going to do these in exactly the same way as the flowers. So I'm going to add the base stencil on first. And for this one, I'm going to be using the Marshland ink. It's a really pretty kind of muted green color. So I'm going to add all of the leaves in with this color. And then once that's done, I can then move on to the second layer. For the second layer, I'm going to be using the Sea Forest. Again, a very pretty green color. I am loving all of these new ink colors this time around. So I'm going to pop that into place, and again, all of the leaves in exactly the same way. Once that's done, I can then move on to the 3rd layer of the leaves, and for this one, I'm going to be using the Mangrove Root. It's a kind of a browny green color, really, really muted and very, very pretty. So I'm going to add all of the leaves in exactly the same way. Again, I'm going to clean off all of the excess ink from the flowers, add a little bit of the anti-static powder, and I'm then going to do exactly the same thing of popping the first layer around the leaf, adding through some embossing ink and then heat setting with some clear embossing powder. Now I'm going to do this for all of the leaves that I have there. Once this has been done, you can see that we have a really beautiful glazed images with the roses and the leaves. Now I'm going to add in a really dark background. For this one, I'm going to be using the new Arctic Mountain ink. And again, I'm just using my little ink blending tool just to get into those spaces. I then wanted to add a little bit more of a texture. So I'm taking this little strip from the box Dots and Boxes stamp set, and I'm just going to add that into the dark layers there. The embossing ink on the other images will resist all of this really dark ink. All you're going to need to do is just take a tissue and clean that off. I then wanted the whole piece to be glazed. So again, I'm taking my little foam tool, adding some embossing ink over that little dark areas that we've just added with the blue, and then it's just heat set with some clear embossing powder, and just look how pretty this is. It looks like a glazed pot. After seeing all of those beautiful projects, you can see why the ink blending is becoming more and more popular among paper crafters. Let us know which technique you want to try first. Do you think you can do it? Each of the card making techniques depicted in this video has a full-length video tutorial on our YouTube channel. You can check out with all of the instructions explained in detail. Find the links in the description below and choose your favourite. Loved watching this video. There is more where that came from here on the Altenew official YouTube channel. Also, don't forget to subscribe and click that bell button so you don't miss out on any of the crafty fun. See you soon and happy crafting.